January 22nd, 2019. It's 9:13 in the morning, and no, this is not a late start. This is day 2 of the interrupted routine. So, what do we have today from One America News Network? House Democrats turbocharge Committee of Probes of Trump. And this is posted January 22nd, 2019 by Ginger Gibson and Karen Freifield, Washington via Reuters. Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives have quietly tweaked a rule on taking secret depositions that is likely to give a boost to their investigations of President Trump and his personal finances and his administration. A little noticed change made since the Democrats took over majority control of the House earlier this month will let staffers of House Investigative Committee take testimony from subpoenaed witnesses without lawmaker being present. That's all we need to know from this article. Links in the show notes as always. What is this about? I tried to give you a heads up when they were talking about House 1, which was the Democrats' rule change for the way the House conducts business under their administration of the House as House majority. This was one of the things in that rule change that nobody was talking about. Not going to say I was the only person talking about it because I actually don't know that for a fact, but I know I reported on it either on January 3rd or January 2nd, or perhaps January 4th. Let's move on. Oh boy. All right. Hang on. From Fox News, threats against Covington Catholic High School students under investigation. And we are going to play this clip because this is an outstanding analysis of what happened. And we're going to stop Tucker Carlson just for a second so that I can sort of reorient where we're going. We brought you some information yesterday about the background of Mr. Phillips and the larger picture of what actually happened, including a group of young conservatives archiving first, and then collecting the addresses of the tweets from news media and, general people who were condemning and doxing these high school students and their families based on a gross misinterpretation of what happened. Okay, let's go.
Associator at Reason, unlike most reporters, he bothered to take a closer look at the Covington incident before passing judgment. He's also the author of the forthcoming book, Panic Attack, Young Radicals in the Age of Trump. Robbie Suave joins us today. Robbie, thanks for coming on. So what I thought was so interesting about your connection to this, and I should say, you're hardly a Trump partisan. I think you're the opposite, actually. So it's not like you were defending Trump. But you were also one of the very first, maybe the first reporter to note that the UVA story in Rolling Stone was clearly a hoax, which it was. And you were among the first to say that this story was more complicated than it seemed. What did you do that other reporters didn't do?
I didn't do anything other reporters couldn't have done. I just looked much more closely and much more elaborately at the facts. What I think caused so many people to miss the real story in both of these cases was that when you're reporting something that confirms all of your biases, that is like all of your worst kind of thoughts about some bad person you're talking about, you have to be really sure. You have to consider evidence that conflicts with that. There's a special burden to go above and beyond to make sure you're just not seeing what you want to see. In Rolling Stone, the author wanted to see the very, very worst in campus and have this outrageous story about sexual abuse, and it completely fell apart. And I think here in this case, so many people were willing to believe, you know, this fits all my preconceived notion about young, white, MAGA hat-wearing people who are here in D.C. for an explicitly conservative or political cause, and they were perfectly willing to believe, without considering much further, that these were the villains of this story, and oh my God, look at what they're doing, it's so terrible.
I'll just confess, I'll just be completely honest. When the Harvey Weinstein story happened, I don't share his politics. I always thought he was creepy. And I actually thought, boy, I better be sure. I wanted to believe it was true in a sense because it comported with what I thought of him ahead of time. And I think it was mostly true. But I do think honest people, when they see a story that confirms their biases, pause before jumping on board, don't they? And shouldn't our journalists be more honest than they are?
Absolutely. And in this case, I mean, it was all there. You just had to watch the almost 2 hours of footage revealing that, just like you explained, there was this crazy hate group yelling obscenities, horrible language at these kids for like an hour. It was goading them to attack. And the kids didn't attack. They did their sort of pep rally cheer thing. It wasn't offensive or mean-spirited even, and they would have been within their rights to be meaner to this group. They didn't fall for the bait at all, and it was at this moment that this guy, Nathan Phillips, injected himself into the moment, and he really misrepresented what happened when he talked to the media. And to some extent, this is a media bias story, but it's also, if you have a source that is prepared to really like mislead you, possibly lie to you about what happened, I mean, that's to some degree just bad luck.
Can you be more specific about, for our viewers who maybe haven't seen it, about what he seemed to misrepresent?
He said that, he said these exact words to the media. He said the boys were beasts and the black nationalist cult group were the prey. And that's why he went up to the boys and not the crazy people with the drums, because he thought they were going to attack. I mean, that's a complete misreading of the situation. That's exactly backward. The boys weren't really doing anything wrong that I could tell from what I saw, and the other people were insane. Now, he either just got that really wrong or he misrepresented it intentionally. He had an entourage there taking video. If you listen to some of the videos, it seemed like they were possibly trying to do a stunt there. One of them says something like, I got it, or we got what we needed, something like that. So I don't know for sure, but he was wrong. He was very wrong.
So this is a story about race, we're being told. We're always told every story is about race. It's absurd. But we're told that there are racists in this video, and here you have a group literally screaming racial epithets.
Right, and anti-gay epithets, and bigoted remarks, and...
But somehow nobody notices that, but it's the high school kids who don't really say anything who are the bigots. Like, you're lying if you reach that conclusion, aren't you? Right,
and everyone's saying they need to be sorry or we need to punish them. I mean, if I'm trying to sort out who did the most wrong or who was most at fault in this situation, it's obviously it's the crazy people who were screaming vile, obscene things for an hour, right? And then I think it's this man who, the most charitable I will be, got it totally wrong, and less charitably lied to the media.
Wait, but Bill Kristol said he was calm and noble and we should learn a lesson.
I want to stop right here. I want to point out that in this series of events right here, Nick Sandmann, this confirms exactly what Nick Sandmann said he did during this encounter. He has just tapped this young man on the shoulder and indicated him, trying to get his attention, indicating to this young man to stop talking. He uses the, cut it sign, and you can see his hand moving away from his throat. Let's see if he does it again. Let's see if I caught it at the right moment.
He's like Iron Eyes Cody, no?
No, nope,
think he was?
I missed it. Sorry.
No, I think this was, and they're not engaging in targeted racial harassment of him. They're just not. They're confused. They're like, is this guy on my side? And they're joining in with him. And it's, it's not perfect. I don't know. Maybe they should have done something about it differently. But it's not. It wasn't malicious toward him until then they get confused about maybe he's not on their side. Maybe he's with these crazy people.
Robbie Suave, next time you write a piece saying, hey, I don't think that story sounds quite right, all of us should pay close attention to it.
Thank you so much.
I'm serious. You've got quite a track record. Great to see you. Thank you.
And he did get it right. Let me close the window. Fox, don't do that, please. So let's hit a couple of highlights. Authorities prepared a safety plan for Covington Catholic High School amid threats of violence made against the students following the now viral incident in Washington. The threats stem from the video clip. Let's skip down. The subsequent video footage revealed that the students were accosted and yelled at before Phillips and other Native American activists approached them. Another group, the so-called Black Hebrew Israelites, were heard shouting abuse at the students wearing Make America Great Again hats. Kenton County Commonwealth's attorney, Rob Sanders, told the Cincinnati Enquirer on Monday that threats against the school and students are being investigated. He didn't reveal the exact nature of the threats, only that the students and school were being threatened with actual violence. This prompted the school to come up with a security plan for the school for Tuesday, which was today, with Sanders saying the school is cooperating with other law enforcement agencies. Quote, "We should be prepared for tomorrow," Sanders told the newspaper. Nick Sandman, a junior at Covington Catholic School who was caught in the center of the controversy, spoke out for the first time on Sunday. He released a statement claiming that he and his classmates were taunted by a group of African American protesters. I think we know, based on yesterday's reporting to you and everybody else who's in the mix of this, where the actual facts lie by now. But there are some more things that are coming to light, so let's take a look. In our next story, also from Fox, didn't have that banner earlier this morning. Journalist fired after wishing death on Covington Catholic high school students. I want you to pay very close attention to what this guy says in his tweet. And this is presented by Lucas Michaelionis, Fox News. Eric Abris reportedly lost his job at INE Entertainment after a tweet about Covington Catholic high school students, and this is from Twitter. A freelance Vulture journalist, Vulture is a publication, not a type of journalist, was fired from his main job at digital company INE Entertainment after wishing death for multiple Covington Catholic high school students and their parents in the wake of controversy over the incident between the students and Native American activists, a report said. He was a post-production supervisor at this entertainment company and was fired for his tweets. Eric, quote, "pay the teacher's man," close quote, Abris, and you can find him at Abris Eric on Twitter. I don't know what I want you to pay very close attention to this tweet because we're going to bring it up again. I don't know what it says about me, but I've truly lost the ability to articulate the hysterical rage, nausea, and heartache this makes me feel. I just want these people to die. Simple as that. Every single one of them and their parents. And he's referring to Covington Catholic high school boys. Let's move on because I don't want to get stuck on this story. Another thing that I found out when I was looking into the background of Mr. Phillips, but the broadcast took an interesting turn yesterday, and so I didn't have time to include it, but we're going to include it here. Apparently, Mr. Phillips was the leader of the Native Youth Leadership Organization. He was the youth director. And it was reported that Mr. Phillips is fundraising for any potential ramifications from his choice of actions on Friday afternoon. And so I quickly did a search to find out who funds the organization that he was the youth director of. So, and as you might imagine, a lot of the funding sources are Native American groups and affiliates and tribes and so forth. But let's just take a quick rundown. So, a couple of anonymous or some anonymous donor, individual supporters, National Park Service. Why is the National Park Service donating to this cause? Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Social Justice Fund Northwest, and the National Indian Gaming Association. Tribal gambling profits are being donated to this fund, who is sponsoring the fundraising efforts for Mr. Phillips' defense against the consequences of his actions. Let's move on. This kind of turns the corner, but it ties directly into the story of this journalist and what this journalist said. Man 27 arrested after allegedly threatening to kill women because he's a virgin. Okay, Fox, thank you for those two announcements. Christopher Wayne Cleary, this has no photo credit, presumably it is a mugshot, but I'm only, that's a presumptive statement. I don't know. A 27-year-old man was arrested on Saturday in Utah as he allegedly threatened to kill as many girls as he sees because he is still a virgin, reports said. Christopher Wayne Cleary was arrested in the town of Provo. He was allegedly posting threats on Facebook, Fox 13 reported, citing court documents. Quote, "All I wanted was a girlfriend, not 1,000, not a bunch of hoes, not money, none of that," he allegedly posted. Quote, "All I wanted was to be loved, yet no one cares about me. I'm 27 years old, and I've never had a girlfriend before, and I'm still a virgin. This is why I'm planning on shooting up a public place soon and being the next mass shooter, because I am ready to die, and all the girls turned me down, going to make it right by killing as many girls as I see." His quote is awkward. So he allegedly told detective that he was not thinking clearly when he posted this message, full stop. Links in the show notes for everything that we present. You can read the rest of this. What this young man said ties in with the quote that we got from this journalist about losing the ability to articulate his rage and all that. And saying, "I just want these people to die." Mental illness generally shows up with serious red flags in young adulthood. So between, say, 25, 26, and 30, 31. And that's a broad range. It can show up earlier, as in the case of the Columbine shooters, but generally it shows up in early adulthood in the 20s, and it shows up in men sooner that it shows up in women. This is not male bashing. This is according to statistics based on mental illness. So here we have a young man who has no ability to understand a woman's perspective. You know, did they decline to date him because of his behavior or his personality traits? Or, you know, was it something different? Should he have shaved? Should he not have shaved? Should he have gone to the gym? Should he not have gone? You know, those superficial, useless things that people make judgments on instead of the content of somebody's character. So I want to move on to the article that I saw that was the catalyst for including this article. I didn't search it out. It just came up in the search bar. So this is where this part started, from the New York Post. These are the new dating trends you need to know about. And let me just say this to you. These are not new. This is by Christopher Golan for the New York Post, published on January 18th, 2019. January is the most popular time to meet singles, according to Tinder, which is a dating site. And a new year means a slew of new dating trends to be wary of before jumping back into the market. Quote, "The lack of respect that exists in dating today is really," close quote, matchmaker Michelle Frankel told the Post. And they didn't finish her thought, or she didn't finish her thought. But it goes on to say, quoting her, "There's a lack of humanity with how people treat each other," close quote. "Here are terms to keep an eye out for. Pocketing. Have things been getting serious between you and your better half, but he still hasn't introduced you to his mother? Chances are you've been pocketed." Quote, "He knows he's really never going to get serious with this person," Frankel, the owner of New York City Matchmaking, told the Post. "The relationship is fun, but he doesn't see her as a future wife. Why get friends and family involved?" Close quote. Cookie jarring. The term refers to treating someone as a backup option while you're dating other people. You may not be that serious about your date, but you sporadically dip your hand into the cookie jar if you don't have any better snacks in front of you. Quote, "I think some people really don't know what they want," says Kate McLean, a dating expert at Plenty of Fish. You can't just be stringing another person along," close quote. U-turning. Now, for those of you watching the broadcast, this term totally confused me, because instead of using the word or the letter U, which would make it crystal clear what they're getting at first it, made me think of something to do with YouTube. So let's move on. This is crystal clear, by the way. Some people may be too good to be true. U-turning refers to falling head over heels over someone, but you discover something completely off-putting about them, like poor oral hygiene or a recent criminal record. Quote, you've turned the other way towards the end of the relationship because of the major deal breaker, close quote, McLean said. Now, this is talking about the person who goes, nah, there's something about this person that isn't sitting right with me, and the further this goes on, this is the thought process in the head. The further this goes on, the more uncomfortable I am, but at this point, I'm not sure how to get gracefully out of it. And the person being rejected has no idea what's going on in your head because you haven't been honest in the first place. And these things, these trivial, superficial things like poor oral hygiene or a recent, criminal record is not trivial. But these, should the guy go to the gym? Should he not go to the gym? Should he shave? Should he not shave? Do I like facial hair? This relatively trivial stuff should have been thought of and perhaps worked out all along by being kind and honest. So why am I stringing the journalist, the man from Utah who wants to do a mass killing of women, and this seemingly superficial dating article along? Well, it's the lack of humanity and the lack of empathy to see the other's point of view, to understand what's in the other's heart and mind before you make judgments. And that is what happened in the Covington Students incident on Friday. The Black Hebrews were agitating on purpose. There was a plethora of cameras around, as we now know. The Native Americans saw, or at least Nathan Phillips did, as a Native American youth elder and leader, saw an opportunity to probe a confrontation that would make the press big time, and it did. The Covington Students, with Nick Sandmann taking the lead, whether he wanted to or not, held their ground in terms of showing they weren't afraid or they weren't going to be intimidated by an increasingly tense situation. And Nick even, as we saw in the Fox clip, stopped a fellow classmate from engaging with the protesters in the hopes of keeping it from getting out of hand. All right. We had one more story, and I think I'm going to drop it for today because we had a full roster. Let me just make sure. Yes, we covered everything except for the last story, and we're not going to do the last story today. We'll save it for another day. Let's go to the desk. So this is the moment where Nick Sandmann continues his efforts to keep the situation diffused and calm by touching his classmates' shoulders and telling him, stop talking, don't make it worse by talking. He doesn't verbally say it, but his gestures are clear what his intent is. And I just have to say, this is an example of what is right with the youth in coming up. If we can depend on them to continue forward with this kind of calm, balanced, common sense approach to uncomfortable, even surprisingly unfamiliar situations, there's hope for us to be able to right this ship of fools that seems to just be ready to sail off the edge of a flat earth. If there are not enough young people who either behave this way with balance, empathy, and common sense, or enough that are being influenced by young people who are behaving with those attributes, we're in for an awful time of it in this country, and perhaps in the wider Western civilization. It seems to me that cooler heads can prevail if examples like Nick Sandmann's are encouraged. And we take note when someone who is in their teens or early 20s gives us indicators that they are running off the rails. And we certainly saw that in a 27-year-old who got to the point where he was ready to commit mass murder. Let's stop soft soaping what these events are. This is murder on a mass scale, and it's targeted murder. Let's call it what it is. All right, I don't want to end on a downer note. I think we've said enough about this for today. So to end on somewhat of a more interesting and lighter note, I want to bring you the page for January 20th to 21st, 2019, the total lunar eclipse, otherwise known as the blood moon. And there's all kinds of views that you can see on this page. And we're going to just watch the eclipse map to see who got to see the full eclipse during this time. So if you look below the animation on this page, where's my cursor? There it is. You'll see all kinds of views of this eclipse, the entire partial and total, and so on and so forth. Start to finish, from white moon, if you will, or clear moon to clear moon, was about a 4-hour event, and I did not film it clearly. I would have liked to, but there's no way I could have filmed 4 hours, even to eventually speed it up. So I thought you might find that interesting. Links in the show notes. So that's all we have for you today. We hope that you are well and blessed, and that your family is blessed. And until we see you again, have a fantastic day.